Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel that takes on narcissism and toxic relationships and toxic people. Today we're going to take on a very interesting question, which is those of you with narcissistic siblings. Could all of this have started when you were children? And please subscribe if you're new to this channel. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about these narcissistic siblings because a lot of people have been asking for this content. So a question I get from a lot of people is, could this have all started when we were children? I know I don't actually talk enough on this channel about narcissistic siblings, and I recognize that it's a very important topic. Every day we get more and more emails from people whose struggle is not parents or partners or bosses, but siblings. Sibling relationships can be quite powerful, and they can be as formative and as impactful, if not more so, than a parental relationship sometimes. What gets so tricky about sibling relationships is that unless there's a large age gap between you and a sibling, when your siblings were children, you were a child too, right? So you obviously grew up together. Now, as a rule, we don't really call children narcissistic. By definition, one could argue that maybe all children are narcissistic because they're egocentric, and they're supposed to be egocentric, right? They're growing themselves, and they're somewhat dysregulated. It's what children do until they differentiate and learn about the needs of the other people around them and learn to regulate and get empathy and all the rest of it. But there is increasing research showing that the soft signs of what the soft signs of narcissism may look like in children, and that may sort of foment into adulthood as full-blown narcissism. These signs include things like having a very difficult temperament, being very demanding of attention, having difficulty soothing themselves, children who are not able to do things on their own, like sort of play by themselves. They always need someone with them. Children who really can't abide by the rules, a sort of miniature entitlement. Children who actually walk around believing that they're better than other children, children who can't share, children who manipulate or bully younger children, or children who may not be as strong as them or as supported as them. So these are all sort of soft signs. None of them are a guarantee, but they're definitely risk factors for adult narcissism. And if these kids with these patterns are older siblings, I can tell you they're pissed as hell when a new sibling turns up. Listen, for many, if not most children, they're excited about a sibling. They look at the sibling as a potential pal or a little baby doll or even a friend. And many older siblings want to name their younger sibling or sing to them or read to them. But definitely not the kids that end up rolling into narcissism, almost to a T. They do not appreciate what they consider to be an interloper sibling showing up. They may say mean things about their sibling. They may even do mean things to them. And parents really have to have a watchful eye to ensure that this kind of an older sibling doesn't harm the new baby or young child. Now, as a child, if you had siblings, you likely have very conflicted memories of the sibling that may have grown up to become a narcissistic adult. Things like competitiveness, bullying, being set up to do things and then getting in trouble for them, being put into dangerous situations by the sibling, being yelled at, being stolen from. None of this is normal stuff. And some people may try to play it off as, oh, that's just sibling rivalry, but it's not. Almost to a T, when I have spoken with people who have adult siblings who are narcissistic, they do not have any sunny memories of the sibling in early childhood. They instead remember bullying, meanness. They don't remember anything good, even from those early years with that sibling. If you have only one sibling and that sibling is narcissistic, it sucks, and it can really bring up so much grief. A sibling relationship is such a unique relationship, and to have your shared historian of childhood be someone who actually never liked you and may have even harmed you can feel like such a fundamental and primal loss. And then when you throw in people saying things like, oh, siblings have to stick together, and yet your sibling has only undermined and harmed you, the minimization and the gaslighting can feel absolutely desolate. Sadly, narcissistic siblings are masterful at triangulation and as often depicting you as the person who is the one with the problem and is being standoffish and difficult. In adulthood, many folks with narcissistic siblings end up trying to distance from them. That's not always easy if you're trying to simultaneously also maintain contact with maybe other family members you're okay with, and those other family members may try to push you back together in the name of family harmony. And again, the narcissistic sibling who wants validation and admiration from the family system will often paint you as being the problem because you're the one who's going no contact, or you're the one who's not responding, or you're the one who's just not going along with them. While the narcissistic sibling is the one who may be sort of staying in touch with everyone because it's a way of them getting validation. The harm of a narcissistic sibling can be lifelong and can have impacts on how you care for aging parents, and the odds are that it'll all fall on you while somehow they will still manage to grab up the lion's share of an inheritance or avoid the debt. How family finances, business, real estate, and trusts and wills are managed. Once again, odds are that they're going to try to take far more than they're entitled to. The childish competitions persist into adulthood, and the grief will be magnified when other people, such as your parents and others in the family system, don't recognize how poisonous your sibling is. Watch a few episodes of Succession. Whether billionaires or paupers, the impact of narcissistic siblings is very toxic. So, to the original question, yes. It did start when you were children. This didn't all of a sudden just start when you were adults and you recognize your sibling was narcissistic. More and more observational work shows us that narcissistic adults were not nice children. They were often difficult, attention-seeking, pain-in-the-ass kids who grow up into difficult, attention-seeking, pain-in-the-ass adults. And if you were a sibling to them, especially if you were a sweet and empathic kid, it was open season on you. And if either of your parents were either narcissistic or just tuned out, they didn't notice it, or they just minimized it, again, as sibling rivalry or as normal sibling stuff. It's painful when you recognize that you may have been experiencing narcissistic abuse at the hands of a sibling since you were a child. But it seems to me that that's typically how it goes. Now, obviously, if you have a narcissistic parent, you wouldn't have known your narcissistic parent as a child. But I'm guessing that they were difficult, pain-in-the-ass, attention-seeking kids too. If you are curious, you should ask older family members who may have been witness to your parents' childhood. They may give you an honest answer, and it'll give you sort of a fuller picture of how these are often lifetime developmental patterns. To manage a narcissistic sibling in adulthood means the usual rules of narcissistic management: boundaries, realistic expectations, radical acceptance, don't defend, don't engage, don't personalize, usual drill. But it's not easy, and the grief of not actually having this sibling relationship, maybe never having had it, can impact many areas of your life. I've been struck by how pervasive the lifelong impact of narcissistic sibling relationships can be, and so profound because they've been happening since you were a child. Basically, it means you have never had a break from narcissistic abuse. So if you do have an adult narcissistic sibling, I'd love for you to pause and just sort of think for a minute, was it always difficult? Because I'm guessing in the vast majority of cases, you can even drop it in the comments, this was always a difficult relationship since you were small kids. Like I said, competitive, bullying, being manipulated to do things that weren't okay for you, being the person who took the blame, all of those things. They've always been there. So when this comes into starker relief in adulthood, you are able to look back and say, it's always been difficult. Be prepared, though, because if some things happen in the family system, these narcissistic siblings can really, really make things difficult, and the world often is not supportive because they'll say, oh, it's your sibling. Of course they have your back. And when they don't, you can feel very unheard, very lonely, and very unseen in the struggles you face. Thanks again.